Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining Tom and I for Helping Managers Win, and with Optimax Talent. And today we're going to be continuing our conversation on how we believe we can help you help managers win. I'm Byron, and I'm here with Tom. You want to say hi, Tom?
Hello, everybody.
And today we're just a continuation of what we have been talking about. We believe that managers are crucial. In many ways, they're kind of the bridge that connects the work to the strategy and the work to the results. And if you take away the managers, you take away that middle managing group, your business won't work. And we know that's true. And the idea of there's a couple of things that we believe that are important to kind of address here. And this all came from a research that was done in the middle of 2023 that was put out by the Predictive Index. And it basically said that managers, they really do need our support, and they need support from all different ways and angles and aspects and facets. And this is how we believe we can help managers win, is by providing them some support. And Tom and I, with Optimax Talent, we'd like to be a part of that solution for you and helping your managers win. We also believe that they need resources. They need to understand more, for sure, but they also need to know how that they can empower their teams, because their role is so incredibly important and critical. So they need support, they need resources. And last week we talked about this, which is kind of interesting. It's all about understanding behavior, and we could pretend that this is one of your meetings, and these four folks are on your team. Some people excel and others don't. There's no way you'd know by looking at this slide who is a top performer and who is not. And there's no way that you would know, unless you have the behavioral science data, that you would know from the people in this picture what drives and needs are below the surface. You simply wouldn't know that. And what we're proposing and wanting to discuss and talk about with helping managers win, and how we can help you help managers win, is with this notion of understanding behavior. And if you have a way of understanding behavior, human behavior, and there's a way to do this, through the behavioral assessment with the predictive index, you can actually have this notion of each person. Obviously, each person in this picture, they each have a name, but they also each have unique needs and drives, or drives and needs that turn into behavior that's very, very predictable. And what we're suggesting is, just like someone has the uniqueness of their name, they also have a uniqueness of a behavioral profile that we would love for you to understand, so that you can actually get more out of these meetings. Any thoughts, Tom?
No, keep rolling.
Okay, sounds good. So the idea is, we talked about last week, is it true? Can we really predict behavior? I mean, and we talked about the progression of drives, these drives that human beings have. And like in this example here with this picture, I mean, you're in the meeting, so you're looking at the picture. And so there'd be a total of 5 people in the meeting, and you're looking at 4 of them. And the point is that each one of us has drives that they're deep. They're not, and they're all formed partly by a myriad of influences. Some of it is nature, some of it is nurture, and some of it is through experience. Some of it can even be partly, even not necessarily through education, but it's really some of that experience can actually create some drives. But the point is that the drives create these needs, and these needs need to be expressed, and they will be expressed. And the behaviors are the responses to these needs. So the behaviors are simply the tip of the iceberg. And when you have this information, when you have this data, when you have the behavioral data, the people data, when you understand how this works, you not only know someone's name, you have a greater familiar with their drives and their needs and their behaviors that want to make it to the surface. Any thoughts, Tom?
I'll just zoom out to the big picture. What you started with is, the better we can understand their drives and needs, the better we can position work so they're in a place to do their best. And that will contribute to both their fulfillment, which will help with retention and career development, and also their engagement. So the business case, we want to do this because it's the right thing to do, but the business case is the better we understand one another, the better we work together, the more fulfilled we are and productive. So it's paying attention to two different things that align from understanding human need and drive.
Really well said. So the answer to this question, or this statement, can we predict behavior, is yes, we can. And we would encourage you, if you're currently not using any kind of behavioral science tool like the predictive index, to consider that. And as you can see, that I still have that banner scrolling at the bottom, just below, where you can see. We'd love for you to take it yourself, because when you do have an organization that is deploying the predictive index and using behavioral science data, what ends up happening is that you actually embrace diversity. And this may be a different take, or maybe it's a nuance with the idea of DEIB, diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging. The idea is that with diversity, embracing diversity, everyone is different. And that becomes a really good thing, because that really lends very well to what Tom had just shared, because you have people, and people are critical. Without people, and we're saying without managers, but managers are people, and it's going to be, probably, to say you have 10 managers, it would not be impossible to think that all 10 managers are going to be different in their behavioral profile. That is a possibility. The point is that when you have the data, when you have the information, then you're able to see people thrive in a role that matches who they are behaviorally. And this is another way of looking at the need for us to have this mindset that's more open towards diversity. And the point is, when you have a team, when you have a company which is comprised of teams, and when you have teams that are comprised of people, the more balanced, the more diverse the team is, you're going to have some positive things and some negative things. But the point is that diversity really needs to be understood, and how that can help you move towards and move forward in having a strategy that is effective and that can actually help you get the business results you want. Any thoughts, Tom?
Yeah, let's take a look at what that would look like at the individual or small team level.
Yeah, we could do that. So what we're going to do, we're going to do that in a second, and we're going to be able to do that through. Let's do this. So today we're going to be talking about, if you look at it at a team, and this is a team that we had talked about last week, and we're highlighting one particular person. So we're going to look at this, and we're going to come back to this slide. But since I didn't have an answer to what Tom was suggesting, I can use this slide instead. And this is basically just saying that the team that Brendan is on, and this is the team that remember, Tom's also, because his TR is Tom. Brendan and Tom are very different. Let's say Tom's the leader of the team, but this is a pretty, diverse team. I mean, they do have probably more people on the left, on the right side of this than on the left. But what do you see here, Tom, when it comes to the notion and the topic of diversity?
We have a balanced team. We're covering all the work styles, and we have a team which at its best can have people largely doing the work they're most suited to do. And then it becomes a communication issue because something's pressing and people end up throwing people at the problem, like we've discussed before. So it can get out of alignment pretty easily. But if we're paying attention, we have what we need to produce. We have balancers for all the work style, and it could be a very effective team.
Yeah, and I like what Tom said about, it was really kind of the implication that alignment this team can be aligned. But even if you have a team that looks just like this, it's possible for even a team like this to become misaligned because teams don't run themselves. And it's going to be important that you have consistency in your, and I would say consistency in the quality of your communication. So if you have, like if Tom's the leader, Tom is going to make sure he's going to be touching base with every single person on this team to understand that they understand not only who they are, but they understand their work, they understand their teammates. But the point is that this idea of diversity is the idea of having, it's not just, one work style. Like with this example, this producing team is an example, Brendan's team or Tom's team. They do, like Tom said, they have representatives in each one of the quadrants. Any closing thoughts on this, Tom?
Well, just that we could also say align to one another, but align to the goal, because it's called a producing team. But what if it's producing things that would be majoring in the minors and not impacting what matters most? So the alignment and realignment is a continuous process, and understanding what we're talking about today means that the misalignments don't last as long. They still happen because we're all in the world of gravity, friction, and mortality, but we have something to communicate that has an objective side as well as a subjective side. So it's objectivizing the subjective.
We are in the world of gravity, mortality, and friction, right? Is that what you said?
That's the truth. Gravity, friction, and mortality.
Love that. So just going back to this, the idea of embracing diversity, we want to help you help managers win by, when you understand yourself. That someone even asked me yesterday, what is the ROI of, like, what is the benefit of understanding yourself? And I said, well, that's actually pretty low hanging fruit when you think about if you can work with, if an individual on a team, and hopefully you understand what I'm saying here, when you have an individual on your team that doesn't understand themselves very well, and all of a sudden they start to see themselves and then they begin to understand themselves, they make they're making adjustments all the time. We're constantly coaching ourselves. And when we do improve our self-awareness, we kind of get this sense that we have more self-control than maybe we thought we had. And we have an enhancement in our emotional intelligence or our EQ. And that's really, really, in my opinion, very low-hanging fruit. But that's how we believe we can help managers win. Any thoughts on this as far as understanding others, Tom? Understanding yourself, sorry.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah. And then understanding others, which is the next one, is what this does. It builds this capacity for empathy, which is really a function of understanding. And when you do understand, I think the temptation when you use assessments is you want to use assessments on other people, not yourself. And we believe the exact opposite is true. You start with yourself, then it emanates out from yourself, that understanding. You understand yourself, then you understand others. It improves your ability to understand others, improves communication. You can actually have more effective conflict resolution, and you have stronger relationships. There's a stronger bond there. Any thoughts, Tom?
Yeah, just to add, the third piece is self-awareness plus awareness of self interacting with others. And then lastly, understanding the work as it's impacted by all of that understanding. And that's often missing with assessments. People have a pizza and they do strength finders and they say your woo and synergy and input. And it's interesting and it's even valuable, but it leaves you saying, now what?
Yeah.
And what we are dedicated to is not awareness for awareness sake, which is good, but awareness for the sake of how can we work better together to produce results.
That's really well said. And I do think there's something about the self-improvement industry that kind of bleeds into the marketplace, that we want to take these assessments, but there really is a so what factor to those. It's like, well, so now what? So what's the purpose of this? And our promise to you is that this isn't just about insight. This is about getting insight so that it can improve something. It either improves your communication, improves the effectiveness of your team, and improves the your bottom line, because the reality is that to win in business isn't easy. There are these consistent factors that can push down and can inhibit and slow the growth of your company, of your team. And we believe that these things are real, and they're called the 4 forces of disengagement. And these are absolute blockers to great results. And when you use a great tool like Strength Finder, it really does help you get to a point of, well, so now what? So now what are we going to do about this? Because when you talk about using behavioral science and helping to lift or change any one of these 4 forces of disengagement, because we don't want people in our companies and our teams that are just trying to give minimal results, minimal effort, and so they meet the minimum requirements. You don't want that. You want someone who really is there to learn, grow, and become, and to be a charger. And looking at this particular graph, the picture of it's a graph of the performance and engagement over time. So when you think about when someone, that green line, a solid green line, and then goes into a dotted green line, you're looking for that kind of growth. You're looking for someone who's going to be able to sustain growth over time. Now, there are 4 blockers of great results. You want to walk us through what those are, and we're going to spend a minute on each one, but we'll kind of give them an overview, Tom.
Well, when you think of the word corporation, it means body, and it's a living thing interacting. And when parts are dysfunctional, it affects the whole. And I'm thinking particularly looking at it from the job fit. If someone's a good fit to the job, but they don't work well with the manager, there was a Gallup poll that said that most people fire their manager, not the company they worked for, because to them on a daily basis, sometimes the manager is the company. And so now all that good work you did recruiting the best and the brightest and making sure they were competent and qualified, it can fall apart when it gets to the manager with the person with the job. And then a manager who's very effective sometimes fires the culture. He or she feels like they talk about the importance of people, but they behave as though people were cogs in a machine to produce things rather than part of the whole. And so that affects both the manager and the job. So the only point that we really want to make, and most work gets done the team, and a team is made of individuals. So it doesn't take much to see that all 4 of these forces of disengagement can work together, can work apart, can absolutely destroy one another. And in most cases, it's a mixed bag. And I would just stop here and have everybody just ask, what would the impact be if we got better at understanding these forces, and I'm going to call them forces of re-engagement and sustainable engagement? What impact would that have on the individual, the team, and the whole company level? And that's what we mean by optimize. Never perfect, because human beings are flawed, but if we could just get better, and if we could measure it, what would that do? And that's just really inspiring. And understand that culture just isn't this thing that happens. Usually we create culture unconsciously. And what Optimax Talent is saying, let's do it with intention and by design. And to do that, we need data and people with the kind of a mindset that believe that this is doable.
Well, that's really well said, Tom. Even though I know that you're not feeling great right now, but you can really hear the passion in your voice when you just shared that. You could really hear the weightiness, the importance of this.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that. And if people don't know me, I'm muting myself constantly and trying to speak minimally because I'm in an environment, in a hospital environment with a lot of distraction, a lot of noise. So I'm muting myself. And also I have some kind of weird thing making me dizzy. I wasn't going to call attention to it, but Byron, you pointed it out, so I might as well acknowledge it. So thank you.
Well, yeah. And I just appreciate even when we're not feeling well, we can still notice that there's a passion there. And, Tom and I are real people. So, the reality is that he's actually at the hospital because he's taking care of his dad. And, but it's important. You're important to him. So he's here because we're doing this together with Optimax Talent. And so we're going to go a little deeper in each one of these. So let's look at the job fit. We're going to use Brendan as an example. So remember, Brendan Schmidt is on the team, the fictitious team we created. And Brendan is a guardian, and that's one of those 17 reference profiles from the Predictive Index. And his Predictive Index is over here on the right. So he obviously has a very lower A, a lower B. And A is he's more of a collaborator. B is more reserved. The C, he's just to the right of the little black triangle, which means he's a little higher on the steady. It's really kind of in the middle. And then on the precision side, he is more of a he does like to follow the rules, and he loves structure. He doesn't like making mistakes. So this is a wonderful, wonderful person to have on a team. And again, going back to that whole diversity idea, just a quick story. There was a time when I was and this was early on. I was probably in my early 20s, and I was a leader of a fairly large ministry. And I had under my responsibility, I think it was like I was like 20 years old or something like that. I had a volunteer staff of like 20 people. And I had about 150 to 200 high school kids. They're actually from the class of 1991. So that was just 1/4 of the ministry that was my responsibility. My responsibility was just the class of 91. And there was this one particular guy that was on my team, and he had this profile, and he was an engineer. And he, for me, was constantly balancing me out in my behavioral my behavioral profile is not exactly opposite of this, but it's close. The point is that, and let's call this guy the guy that I'm talking about. His name wasn't Brendan, but we can say he was Brendan. Brendan appreciates clear instructions and expectations. So whenever I wasn't clear, and whenever I wasn't providing him with what he needed in his job, he was vocal about that. And I tell you what, it was not easy to lead him, because even though I was younger, and he was a lot older than me. He was probably in his late 20s, early 30s as an engineer, but he was a volunteer, remember? And technically I'm volunteering too. I was paid a little bit, but the point is that I was the leader. I was the one that was kind of organizing this whole thing. But I thoroughly believe that he made me better by having him on my team. He made me better as a leader. But when you look at the job fit for someone like Brendan, so like this guy was an engineer, as you can see, I mean, engineer isn't on this, but it could easily be on this possible jobs. And this graph here is his predictive index. That is his predictive index. This here is actually the job profile. So if you want to do a job profile, you can actually, and with PI, it's more than just a behavioral assessment. You actually can have the behavioral assessment for the job. And as you can see, it kind of overlays. You can see his predictive index, all these data points are overlaid onto this job profile. And this just gives you an idea of some possible, and an engineer could also be another possible job. But Brendan could be a fit for an accountant, an editor, a paralegal, a lab technician, etc. You can read those just as much as I can. But you know what he probably isn't going to be a fit for? He's probably not going to be a fit for being a salesman. He's probably not going to be a fit for being even though he probably could be a really good researcher, he may not be good at raising money. So the point about job fit is that this is where, with the behavioral science of the person and what Tom said earlier, we can actually use the same behavioral science in making sure that the person is in the right role. But for me, I learned this really, really early on, that it's really important. And it also goes back, and that this very much lends it to my value of diversity, because I learned very, very early on that I had a very different, very kind of extreme. My predictive index is very predictable. I learned that very early. I'm not the easiest person to work with, and I absolutely need to have people that are different than me to work with me to make me better. But this is one of these instances of looking at the alignment of the job and the individual, where this becomes a much. This gives Brendan more hope to be in one of these roles. Obviously, he needs to have the education, the skills, the knowledge, the experience, the education in order to fit that job or that role. But the thing is that there's a number of different profiles that would fit for these roles. Any thoughts, Tom?
I was just smiling because I was realizing I would never compete with Brendan, because if I came into the lab, my high enthusiasm might convince people, and my belief in anything's possible, that we're going to revolutionize the lab. But then after the first few days of enthusiasm, I have no idea what to do, because my lagging D can't put order to it. And this is why partnerships is so good, because there might be a place for me in the lab, but the word technician would not follow. It may be lab promoter. I don't know. I'm a promoter, but is to understand that there are some things that we could do with pure grit, but we're not going to enjoy them, and we're not going to do them well, and it's not going to be sustainable. And so all these positions there aren't for me. And that's a good thing to know. They're important positions. It's nobody better or worse. It's just to say there's somebody that really could make a difference in the lab, and it might be Brendan, but it sure isn't Tom.
Really well said. Then there's manager fit, which Tom just kind of illuminated a little bit. Tom does bring this enthusiasm to the lab, and he's a champion of projects. He could actually be the lab leader. He could be the director. And he would absolutely lean on Brendan's ability to have attention to detail and flawless execution. And believe it or not, Brendan would love having Tom as a boss, because Tom would be a champion of Brendan. And if Brendan needs resources, guess who's going to go into bat to get the resources? It's not Brendan. It's going to be Tom. So this is one of these instances where you have someone who has a very different profile, and it can be a great manager fit. Any thoughts?
And
Tom?
I would never micromanage him. He wouldn't have to worry about that. You build trust. He does what he does, I do what I do, and we do what we do together. I love Brendan working for me.
Yeah,
he gets a raise.
That's great. Then a cultural fit. Now let's pretend that Brendan's going to go. He's going to apply for a job at Acme General Corp, and this is a fictitious company. Brendan brings attention to detail, flawless execution. He's thorough, detail-oriented, meticulous, reliable, hates mistakes. And Acme Corp, they're looking for accuracy, excellence, stability and structure, data-driven decisions, respectful collaboration. And their mission is to empower their team with the tools. I love this because this is a mission statement that literally says nothing. To empower our team with the tools and resources they need to meticulously craft exceptional results, fostering a work environment built on stability and continuous improvement. Okay, but the point is, and again, this is hyperbole. I'm using this on purpose, is that you can see where, and again, this is just kind of in some ways tongue in cheek with culture. Culture is a very complicated issue of fit. But I just wanted to show this from a very, very simple level, that this is someone that could fit a company that is trying to drive for accuracy, stability, data, and those kinds of things. Any thoughts, Tom?
I'm just sharing the humor of you can read these things and have no idea what they mean. But they're pretty common. Everybody on the call has seen this before.
Yeah, for sure. And then lastly is team fit, which we already showed this slide earlier. And this is the last slide, and then we'll kind of land this plane in probably a minute and a half. Maybe we might go a minute over, 2 minutes over today. But team fit, you can see where this team, this producing team, which is task oriented. They have their eye on the prize. They're cooperative in the sense that they want to work together. That's definitely something that would be a fit for Brendan. When exchanging resources, people may expect something in return, or use information to gain influence over others. Whether or not that would be something he would like, but Brendan as a process and precision. Again, I do still see the typo because I haven't changed it, and I see that probably more than others. But the point is it's there. Brendan wants to collaborate. He wants to work with others. So the idea of having a producing team, and he's not going to be nearly as competitive as the folks over here, hardly at all. But he would be a wonderful, wonderful teammate to have, because he's going to fit on the team. So going back to these 4 forces of disengagement really quickly, as you can see, if this is Brendan and what we talked about today, it wouldn't be this darker green. It would be on the dotted green, because it would be the forces of what Tom talked about, the forces of re-engagement. You said re-engagement, and what was that?
I don't remember. It came to me in a flash. But I think if you're going to talk about disengagement, the obvious thing to talk about is re-engagement, just like misalignment and alignment. And there probably was something else I added. We'll have to go back and listen to the tape, because it came to me in a flash.
And that's, and that is Tom's brilliance, because there are times when Tom will say something and it's absolutely brilliant, but he doesn't have this it's the D. He doesn't have that D to capture it, where Brendan would. But Brendan's not going to have the insight or the brilliance that Tom does. But anyway, thank you for taking the time today. It was fun walking you through this. We'll be with you again next week, and we'll talk about something that's along these same lines. But we very much appreciate you taking the time, and it matters to us. If you are interested in taking the predictive index, just go to our website, optimaxtalent.com, and there we can take the assessment. And Tom or I would love to meet with you face to face to go through your results. You have
And
a great,
raise your hand if you want to have a conversation about any of this. We're both stand ready to talk about how this can make a difference in your world. Thank you very much.
perfect. Thanks, and thanks, Tom.